Brad Garlinghouse finally speaks out about spot XRP ETFs. I got that information and so much more. Matt Hugon says we are about to witness the end of 4-year cycles. The next 10 years in crypto will be the biggest in any market and any time in history. You gotta hear these clips. We also have some brand new information from Zach Rector, 21 shares XRP ETF, and a ton of other news to go over. But let's start here with the legend, Brad Garlinghouse. First of all, I hope you had a great weekend, guys. Thank you so much for being here. 4 weeks, and XRP is now the fastest crypto spot ETF to reach $1 billion in assets under management since ETH in the United States. With over 40 crypto ETFs launched this year in the US alone, a few points are obvious to me. There's pent-up demand for regulated crypto products, and with Vanguard opening up access in traditional retirement and trading accounts for Americans, crypto is now accessible to millions more people who don't need to be experts in the technology, which means making it easier for people to access these assets through these ETFs, through their brokerage's account, is a lot easier than having people going and learning about exchanges and seed phrase and cold storage and all of these other things that makes the crypto market complicated. Wallet addresses, right? These are the things that really have slowed down innovation and bringing the average and most common person into the market. And as we go through the next few years, the people that are going to be able to solve the most complicated points in the crypto space and make it easier for mainstream adoption will be the biggest winners. And I think that's what Brad's talking about here. Longevity, stability, and community are all underrated themes that matter to this new set of off-chain crypto holders. All right, and then let me play this clip because I thought this did speak volumes to what a lot of things that I've been hearing around the crypto space. A lot of people still say we're going to be in these 4-year cycles, but a lot of people are saying we're about to break free of those chains.
Through the lens of the 4-year cycle, look, I think the 4-year cycle is dead, by which I mean I think 2026 will be an up year. But I do think the 4-year cycle, there it is, on the Bitwise chart, we started using that in 2022 when it was predicting 3 positive years. Look, I do think the 4-year cycle has played a dominant role in this year being so volatile. I think a lot of people who have been in this market since 2014, 2016, 2018 were sitting on substantial gains. And I do think there was substantial selling ahead of the 4-year cycle. Critics will say you're not seeing that much selling in the actual old wallets. I would respond that you're seeing it in covered call strategies written by crypto whales that don't show up in wallet movements, but nonetheless introduce effectively new supply into the market. So I think the 4-year cycle has been a primary driver of this year's volatility, but I do not think it will repeat in 2026. I think the forces that caused the 4-year cycle are now very weak, and countervailing that, we have 10-year forces in institutional adoption and regulatory improvement that are very strong. And I just don't see 2026 being a down year.
So this is what we have coming in 2026. We're going to have the Clarity Act here in the United States that's going to give crypto regulations for corporates and retail people to be able to buy into the crypto market, know what the rules of the road are, and be able to enter the space, hold assets, custody, whatever people want to do. At least we are going to have the understanding. Also, outside of the US, other countries either have already set up their regulation perimeter or are going to be following the US's footsteps. Sometimes countries wait for the US to set certain policy. If there's a lot of trade being done between those two countries, they want to make sure that their regulatory perimeter aligns. Now you have the ETFs, right? And all of these different products that makes it easier for retirement accounts and 401k and the $60 trillion worth of stock market to be able to come in. Now you're working on tokenizing bonds and corporate treasuries. That's a $120 trillion market. You have tokenization of real estate. That's going to start, being a bigger and bigger piece of the pie on different blockchains. Right now, we haven't even reached 0.25% of real estate tokenized yet on blockchain. That is a $500 trillion market. You're talking about derivatives. That is starting to make its way towards crypto blockchain settlement as well. So all of these forces are going to be coming to a head at once. And this is why a lot of people believe 2026 will be a very good year for crypto and hopefully a very good year for XRP holders. I'm really looking forward. I got the bottle of champagne in the fridge, whether it's the Jake Claver prediction in this month or if we have to wait a little bit in 2026, whatever, I have it ready. I hope you guys have a bottle ready too, because when the day comes, we are going to pop that together and we are going to celebrate. All right, digital perspectives. Brad Kime says, great question. So the question is, I wonder why XRP escrow is not included in the valuation. And so this is, the post is unavailable. Ripple's $500 million share sale, valuing the company's $40 billion, reportedly let select investors, include Citadel, sell shares back to a preset higher price, guaranteeing a profit. So a lot of weird stuff kind of going on behind the scenes, but wondering why XRP's escrow wasn't valued in the 40 billion evaluation, because if you took Ripple's escrow, right, and how much XRP that they have, the company's worth a whole lot more. And so you start to speculate, is some of that escrow already spoken for? Have the big dogs like the BlackRocks already made a deal and Ripple's just holding on to it for them until that deal goes through? And so Brad Kimes hits this back, says, great question. Maybe because the XRP escrow doesn't belong to Ripple solely. Escrow, by definition, is a third party holding funds in a neutral account. Ripple is the steward of the escrow the same way that a title company doesn't own the property that you are buying from a seller either. That is why I believe they don't put the value of the escrow on Ripple's balance sheet. It belongs to third parties. And you start to wonder, has Ripple made deals with maybe the Fed, the US government, maybe the EU and other central banks around the world that they have been working with, the IMF, the BIS? There's all kinds of things that could have been happening behind the scenes that the NDAs are keeping quiet. And we start to really get excited because there's so many possibilities here. There's never been so much NDA and speculation around a specific company and a crypto asset in the entire crypto industry. You don't have this same, thing with Solana or Ethereum, but you do have it with Ripple and XRP, and you start to wonder, why is there so much, right? All right, Digital Asset Daily says, which means available supply is much lower than expected, and a supply shock is just around the corner. Exchange visible XRP has dropped to a low single billion range, and early spot ETF accumulation plus OTC sourcing are already tightening the float, but there is still enough circulating supply in Ripple escrow that a full buy up what's left moment likely plays out over the next few months rather than days. So obviously this thing could take 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. We don't really know exactly how long. If a company like BlackRock were to come in and offer a spot XRP product, or Fidelity or another giant starts offering the ability to buy spot XRP ETFs, that could also be a catalyst that could push the price up. And then XRP on exchanges right now, recent on-chain analytics coverage puts the total of XRP held on centralized exchanges under 2.7 billion tokens, down sharply from prior years and near historic lows. Love to hear that. One report notes that Binance alone is down around 2.7 billion XRP, itself at an all-time low for the venue, while other major exchanges have also bled reserves. Remember, some of this XRP is probably already spoken for. All right, Zach Rector says 21 shares XRP ETF S1 was updated, but it did not remove the delay clause. They are still relying on the SEC to approve it at this point. The language should read, this registration statement shall therefore become effective in accordance with the provisions of Section 8-A or A8 and the Securities Act of 1933. What does this mean? The screenshot means 21 Shares is still choosing to have the SEC actively approve its XRP ETF S1 rather than letting it go effectively automatically in 20 days. I don't know why they're doing that, but that is what's holding up the 21 Shares XRP ETF. This morning we saw 30 minutes in 6.17 million combined, 5 million per hour, could be 32 million today. I'll have some content later on today that'll keep you up to date with how much we saw. 3 hours to go and we got $14.5 million in fresh XRP inflows for the spot ETFs. Now, are ETFs a good or a bad thing? We tackled this question as well with Matt Hugon.
There is one criticism that I'm sure you've heard of ETFs, Tony, which is, are they like anti-crypto? It's supposed to be this decentralizing force, and ETFs are a centralized entity, like a traditional finance entity. But I think that overlooks what you were pointing to, which is for many, it will just be their entry into the market. And then they'll go on to do more native things. The analogy I always remind people of is almost everyone bought their first crypto asset on a centralized exchange. Almost everyone did that. And it's only after they did that and became acquainted with it that they then moved to self-custody, that they then moved to operating in the DeFi space. You need that easy entry point. ETFs are just another easy entry point. Not everyone will stop there. A lot of people will go there to more crypto native approaches to the market as well.
Fair enough. I mean, there's some people that are not going to want to deal with all the complexities of the crypto market, and making it more simply just buy and sell with a click of a button. You buy a share that represents a certain crypto asset is good enough for some people. RLUSD and the XRP ledger helping to create and support a multi-chain world. Think of the XRP ledger as TCP/IP for tokenized value and money. Replying to this by Loki, XRP and USD will route from the XRP ledger and the XRP ledger EVM to Solana through Axelar starting this December. Final ITS audit updates are underway. After that, the Axelar Solana integration should be ready to go live. And now there are people that believe in the XRP space that every transaction will run on the XRP ledger, even if it's on Solana or Bitcoin. They'll route it through the XRP ledger through some of these bridges. I don't know. I don't think any one chain is going to rule them all, but I do think the XRP ledger is primed for the most adoption and the most use cases and the most regulatory approval. All right, Ripple's IPO value is directly tied to XRP's market price. The new accounting rules could make it one of the most valuable companies in crypto. I said long ago that I think Ripple is a $1 trillion company waiting to be a $1 trillion company. Few realize how deeply Ripple's future IPO value depends on the price of XRP. A 2023 valuation report showed Ripple's implied worth at about $28.6 billion when XRP traded at 60 cents. The document states clearly Ripple's largest asset is its XRP holdings, 46 billion tokens. It also revealed steep private equity discounts. Now, this was back then in 2023, so I just want to remind you. An 84% discount is in secondary market and plus 60% discount in tender offers. At the time, Ripple's balance sheet listed cash or securities for 1 billion and 46 billion XRP tokens. Then came the FASB guidance, which changed everything. Companies who hold cryptocurrencies will report them as at fair value. The result could cause the financial statements for a potential IPO of Ripple to reflect the market price of the actual XRP token. That means Ripple's IPO valuation now mirrors the real-time price of XRP. When this report was written, XRP was roughly 60 cents and 28.6 billion. Now it trades at $2.24, a little bit down. The same math now implies Ripple's valuation could exceed $100 billion. That would make Ripple larger than Coinbase and bigger than several US banks in the crypto market. Man, I think this is just a start personally. Well, let me know what you guys think down below, right? Where do you see Ripple's valuation of their company in 10 years from now? Is it still going to be in the billions, or do you think it'll reach like the Amazon and the Apples over $1 trillion? And then remember, Unknown DLT says, remember, R3 Corda plus XRP as a liquidity asset will be high probability the DTCC infrastructure. Hidden Road will give access to 4 quadrillion to XRP, $4 quadrillion market. Bitcoin will be a bug when some of that volume moves to the XRP ledger. People are distracted right now with Bitcoin. It is the shiny thing that everybody tells you need to have and to buy. Secretly, they are building the future infrastructure, not on Bitcoin, but using the XRP ledger. XRP as a bridge asset and RLUSD as an institutional level stablecoin for the largest financial institutions to be able to move money back and forth around the world. You're going to see RL yen, RL Great British Pound, RL any other currency that is really going to matter will all be on the XRP ledger. You're already seeing an RL Euro, an RL Real down in Brazil. Banks understand how important this new innovation is, and we are just moments away, right? Moments away from a total world reshape of our new financial system. XRP, Stellar, XDC, Chainlink, right? These assets, HBAR, these assets are really going to be used to transact all of this value, smart contract functionality, and let's get it, guys. Let's get it. All right, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for being here. If you got any value, you can like, share, leave a comment down below. I'm Crypto Sensei. I'll see you next time. Aloha.